The wood was full of mystery. A dense white haze trailed across the giant trees, obscuring the rising sun with a silver haze. The air was damp, and of wet earth and wild grass. There was a dark cave, somewhere deep into the savage world, at the foot of a mountain where a tribe of old human beings lived. Wild, fierce, strong they were, and dressed in the skins of beasts, with sharpened stones and wooden spears. Life for them was not easy. Each sunrise was a new fight with starvation, cold, and death. The tribe was sitting round a fire in the cave. The fires fluttered feebly and tried to resist the cold morning breeze. Their leader, who was a tall man with scars on his arms, stood up. His name was Archon. His low voice disturbed the silence. "Listen, brothers and sisters, the food is gone, the river is dry. Unless we hunt this day, we die this life." The individuals gazed at one another with nervousness, but they believed in Archon, that he was a brave, clever person and had rescued them on numerous occasions before, so they readied themselves to go hunting. The men took up their spears with stone points. The women had baskets of dried leaves, which they were prepared to pick whatever they encountered. The children stood and stared at the marching parents into the jungle with fear and hope in their hearts. Into the wild. Downward they went. Darker became it. The forest floor hardly received the sunlight. Even the rustle of the leaves, the breaking of a branch, the scream of a far-off bird seemed like a warning. Hours passed. They had tracks of animals, but none of them big enough to support the tribe. Archon stopped near a stream. He dropped down on his knees on the muddy ground. His eyes opened. Gigantic foot tracks. A man in them. "This is not a beast," he said to himself. The hunters looked at each other in terror. The ground began to tremble. The trees violently shook their leaves. Then there was a great thunder roar, so great it shook the mountains with it. Archon raised his spear. "Prepare yourselves." The encounter. The forest was shattering into madness, and a huge dinosaur broke out of trees. Its skin was coarse and dark green and burnt with former fights. Its eyes glowed red like fire. It opened its jaws and showed lines of bloodthirsty teeth. The hunters stood still a while. Others intended to escape, and then Archon spoke to them. "Come, flee, or we shall starve. We live like fighters. Fight with me." They screamed in unison, the voice of fear in the jungle. Spears flew through the air. Others hit the thick skin of the creature. Others broke. The dinosaur screamed, and in a savage thrash, it affected its tail. One of the men was tossed over the forest floor and came against a tree. The fight continued. Disorder, dust, blood, and fire. Archon escaped the cords of the beast and screamed out, "Aim for the neck, the neck!" And he mounted a tree which fell and jumped over the back of the animal and thrust his spear right into its body. The dinosaur screamed in pain and kicked its legs. The ground trembled. Birds were scared out of the woods and thunder was roaring in the sky. One last thrust with the spear, and Archon, with it, plunged his spear right into the heart of the beast. The animal gave a long and ghostly roar that resounded in the mountains, and then it pitched down, the earth shaking with the impact of its huge body on the ground. After the hunt, silence. The air was filled only with the heavy breathing of a person and crackling of burning branches. Archon was on his feet with blood and sweat on him. He saw his people, exhausted and bloody and alive. He put his hand on the dead man and said, "We have slain the giant, but never is our struggle with nature at a standstill." The tribe cheered weakly. They put ropes, crafted out of vines, around the body of the dinosaur and started pulling it back to their cave. It was a long and painful way, but they brought not food only there, but also a symbol of victory, and evidence that man was able to survive even in the world of monsters. When the sun had gone down behind the mountains, their shadows were lost in the mist, and there remained a battlefield of shattered trees and antique blood. Something was after them, they did not know. That night, something was staring at them out of the darkness. Night of fire and fear. The sun was slowly dropping behind the mountains and making the sky blood red. The jungle was quieted down once more, but there were the heavy footsteps. The huge carcass of the dinosaur was dragged to the woods by a group of tired hunters. They had sore muscles and they were gasping to get their breath, but their hearts were swelling with pride.
But our struggle
Broken trees and mangled earth behind them had told the tale of the greatest hunt in the history of their tribe. The women and children ran out of the cave as soon as they reached it, with their eyes in disbelief. "They did it," someone shouted. "The hunters have returned." The tribe cheered. Even the children, as young as they were, reached out and touched the scales of the giant. It was not only food to them, it was triumph, life, and hope. Victory. Night came. The cave was illuminated by the fire. They sliced the flesh of the dinosaur into huge chunks, cooked them over the fire, and filled the air with an odor that had never been heard of before, the odor of fire and meat of an animal older than time. The tribe danced, and their shadows were flowing on the cave walls. They rendered pictures of the chase in red clay, Arkin erect, the game falling upon his feet. Animal skin and wood drums reverberated in the night. Arkin sat by the fire, silently staring into the fire. He was proud, but uneasy. Something didn't feel right. He approached the shaman, the old wise man of the tribe, whose hair was gray and whose eyes were deep as the earth. "Angry today, old one," said Arkin. "The forest. Even the wind felt different. What do you see in the fire?" The shaman bent and looked in the dancing fires. He did not say anything a long time. Then,
Look, they're
with
back!
quaint voice, said he, "The beast you killed was not necessarily a beast. It was the protector of this country. Its blood will call others." Arkin frowned. "Others?" The shaman nodded slowly. "The forest will not have rest this night, and neither should we." The night awakens. Towards midnight, the fire subsided. The tribe sank in fullness and weariness to sleep. Arkin and some of the guards were the only ones who remained awake in the entrance of the cave, with their torches faintly burning in the cool wind. Then, a strange sound. The sound of a great rumble, distantly yet approaching. They could feel the ground shaking under their feet. Arkin stood up instantly. "Wake the others," he whispered. Another roar, deeper, louder, more wrathful, came out of the jungle. It wasn't one, it was many. The trees shook violently, birds were torn out of the canopy. A second later, something enormous slipped between the trees, then something else. Arkin's eyes widened. They're coming for their own. The night broke out into anarchy. The earth trembled when several dinosaurs burst out in the direction of the cave, and their roars dichotomized the mountains. The tribe leapt to the fray, torches of fire were drawn up and spears were at rest. The fight was on the verge of breaking out afresh, although this time it was not merely a chase. It was a war for survival. The war of beasts and men. The jungle was burning. The fire swept through the trees, making the night sky red and gold. It shook the earth under the feet of the tribe, and huge shadows came out of the darkness. The protectors of the dead dinosaur. 3 they were, huge, savage, and unsurmountable. Their eyes glowed like fire. Their bellowings broke the silence of the mountains. The children screamed inside the cave. The hunters made a wall and gripped their spears. And there stood Arkin, red-handed and fearless.
Well, tonight, boys, we do not fight for the hunt, but we fight for our tribe. We fight for home.
Tonight,
The warriors
we
bellowed.
fight for our
Torches were
tribe.
used, and the
We
shadows
fight for
cast
home.
by the torches were long and trembling upon the cave walls. The battle begins. The first dinosaur ran forward, breaking trees. A crack came in its weight. The hunters threw in their flaming spears, some struck, some broken, but the beast continued to advance. It crashed against the wall of the stone and shook the mountain itself. One of the hunters was killed on the spot. Arcan took a burning branch, jumped on a rock, and threw it directly into the eye of the creature. The monster screamed and scrunched to and fro, flame scalding its face. The tribe screamed. Hope flared out once more. But the second dinosaur swung his tail up, but came on the side. Bodies flew through the air. The cave entrance shattered. There was smoke, dust, fire, and death. Still, they didn't run. The human beings, so weak, so tiny, but full of spirit, continued to struggle. Stone against flesh, fire against fury. Arcan shouted, "Push them toward the cliff!" The hunters exceeded the beasts and hurled spears, rolling burning logs. There was blood and smoke in the air. A dinosaur had fallen on the smoldering ground and slipped, sprawled down the cliff into the black river below. The others roared in rage. The last stand. It was only Arcan who was still standing, with a wound and gasping. His tribe was scattered. Some of them had been killed, some concealed in the deep of the cave. But before him still stood the biggest dinosaur, with his glowing red eyes and his heaving, angered chest. Arcan picked up his last spear. His voice was steady, although his hands shook. "And though I fall today, my people shall still live tomorrow." The beast charged. Arcan dashed off to it, screaming as hard as he could. Man and monster crashed into each other. The cave was flooded with a flash of fire. As the smoke dispersed, both had disappeared.
Though I fall today,
Here, the dinosaur stood still
my
with a
people
spear
shall
in
live
its heart.
tomorrow.
Arcan was lying beside it, still holding the weapon in his hand. The dawn after the war. At the rising of the sun, the jungle was silent. The rest of the tribe members emerged out of the cave, with ash and tears on their faces. Arcan was lying next to the dead man. The shaman was kneeling by him and murmuring, "He sacrificed his life in order to save us all." Arcan was buried under the great mountain by the tribe, his grave being marked with the teeth of the dinosaur he had killed. And with time, generations coming, they told the same story, over and over again, of the man who fought with monsters, of the night when fire fell on fury, and of how humankind came to know that courage can overcome fear. The end story.